Hello and welcome to Talking Africa, the show that deconstructs the news from the continent, brought to you by the Africa Report magazine. My name's Nick Norbrook. Thanks for joining us, and a very warm welcome to those of you who have joined our special community online. We'll be sending you exclusive material every week via your inbox, and if you haven't joined and you want to sign up and get access to the ranking of Africa's top 200 banks, do visit our website, theafricareport.com, for more. Now, on to our conversation this week. Kuseni Dlamini is a South African businessman who is the chairman of not one, but two of South Africa's biggest companies. The retail giant Massmart, who were bought out by the global retail behemoth Walmart in November 2010, and the pharmaceutical giant Aspen Pharmacare. The combined total turnover for those two companies is almost $10 billion, not small beer. He's also the former executive chairman of Richards Bay Coal Terminal Company and a former chairman of Anglo Operations. Dlamini has a clear message. The world is not waiting for South Africa. South African companies need to start targeting the global market. Companies like Eskom, for example, far from being the calamities they are today, should be multinationals, expanding across the continent and beyond. In a wide-ranging conversation, we look at how South Africa can unlock the talents within, creating more black and women-owned businesses, for example, as a positive way of countering the critique from Julius Malema and others that white-owned capital is still running the show in South Africa. We talk about the health of Massmart and the concerns of shareholders, and we talk Aspen Pharmacare. And because I just can't resist it, we talk about South Africa's version of the developmental state and South Korea. But I started by asking him how on earth he managed to manage his time chairing two listed companies. And beyond having a great team, he said he thrives on chaos and managing complexity, which is something he looks for in the talent he wants to develop for the companies he chairs.
Yeah, increasingly the world of business, and I say most professions, it requires us to be able to be comfortable with managing complexity, because the world is not static. No. It's very dynamic. The pace of change now. What we look for from the executives that we recruit and develop and retain is that ability to learn new things, to unlearn the past and learn the future, and to be agile, to be adaptable, to be able to cope with change. Because the only thing that seems to be increasingly permanent is actually change, rather than consistency.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to jump around a bit if that's okay. It's my modus operandi. How did you see that period unfold from the sort of the middle of the 1990s onwards? Great flowering of hope. Some real effort put into developing black African entrepreneurs in South Africa.
It was an era of hope, the era of Madiba, Nelson Mandela, really building a united and diverse country, reconciling, healing the wounds of the past, and building a new confident rainbow nation that will be at peace with itself and will be a catalyst for the development of the continent, and bring in a new government, which is government of national unity, that sought to leverage the strengths and expertise from diverse players from different parts of society, really trying to create a foundation for today's South Africa, which is about diversity, it's about inclusion, it's about a very strong culture of constitutional democracy, very strong culture of institutions, rule of law, the democratic project being consolidated, deepened and refined, and allowing a culture of open and robust engagement as we see it now between parties as things stand now, and within parties, even within the ANC today.
Especially
that long may that culture carry on of contestation and debate and engagement and challenge of almost everything and not allowing sacred cows. And you look at South Africa over the past 25 years, it has had very peaceful and orderly changes in government, from Nelson Mandela to President Thabo Mbeki to President Kgalema Motlanthe, was an interim president, to President Zuma, and now President Cyril Ramaphosa. And that is excellent because the change is really good. It brings out the best in any society. It unleashes new talent, new energy, new perspectives. And now we are in the era of a new dawn, in an era of really taking South Africa to the next level, talking more about investment, commerce, regional integration, working together with our brothers and sisters across the African continent. Talking about the era of the ACFTA, African Continental Free Trade Area, which is a new era of hope
it is
for the continent. And I think it's a great time to be African. It's a great time to be young. And whenever I talk to young professionals, I just encourage them to raise the scale and level of their ambition and realize how fortunate they are to be young and to be African at this point in time, and to be able to have the opportunities that are there, to create value, and to be able to globalize their careers and globalize their businesses, those that start businesses that should target 7.3 billion people in the world, not 1.2 billion Africans or 55 million South Africans or 170 million Nigerians. There's a much bigger market out there. You look at businesses such as Samsung and LG from South Korea, which has a similar population as South Africa, but their outlook is global. And when they invent and design products, it's not just for their domestic market, but it's for the global market. And I think African business people have got to think about elevating their impact on a global scale and on a sustained basis. And really, that's how we can rebrand Africa globally, by having products in every household across the world, in the touching 7.3 billion people or 9.2 billion people in the next 20 to 30 years.
So you mentioned South Africa, and I was going to bring this up later, but for me it's like a red rag to a bull to hear South Korea rather. You mentioned South Korea, and it's a country which fascinates many on the continent because they want to replicate the speed with which South Korea transformed themselves, because the challenges in Africa are such that speed is now of the essence. Within South Africa, there are many, certainly within the government administration, who want to take this kind of heavy state-driven approach to kickstarting industrialization. Now, the lesson of South Africa is not necessarily that you just need a state to kickstart industrialization. It's that you need a strong state to get to a strong private sector.
Yes,
which is an important distinction. To what extent?
I would say you need an efficient and effective state. Maybe not so much a strong state. We need an efficient and effective state, a smart state that knows that its job is to create an enabling environment for business to thrive, for business to grow, to grow and promote its global competitiveness. A state that's there to create an environment where it has to be an arbiter of all the interests that are there, that in society, that have to be catered for, whether it's labor, it's business, it's the environment, it's communities, it's customers, it's shareholders, it's the regulators. It's a balancing act. The state has got to be the honest arbiter there, but it must not stand in the way of value creation, of enterprise, of entrepreneurship, of innovation. You need a state that enables innovation, that allows innovation to take place. You look at South Korea, it was almost in the same position as most African states in the 50s, with countries such as Ghana and Uganda. But you look at where it is today, it's in a different league. Maybe Africa's path.
They did it with a little bit of sort of, let's borrow some terminology from South Africa. South Korea did it with a little bit of, South Korean economic empowerment. Now, they built a sort of a Darwinian market mechanism into the way they allocated credit to South Korean industry, so the best performing industry would get even more credit, which helped weed out the losers, as it were. But nevertheless, they did that economic empowerment.
It is very important. I think it is indispensable. Whether you look at Germany, you look at the UK, you look at the US, at some stage in the growth of any economy, of any nation, there has to be some supportive intervention from the state, which is why the South African government is doing a good job in trying to create that environment for domestic investors to emerge, domestic economic players, black industrialists, what as it's referred to. There is so much opportunity, and already we do have global businesses that have come out of South Africa. Aspen, that I'm chairman of, is one of them, founded post 1994 in a 4-bedroom house in Durban, now operating in over 50 countries in the world. We're number 1 in anesthetics in the world outside of the United States, number 2 in thrombosis. We run manufacturing plants across Europe, in France where you live, with manufacturing plants in Germany, in the Netherlands, and across the world. We are a first world business located and founded in an emerging market like South Africa, but we need more. We need more Aspens. That's just like South Korea's gold, your Samsungs, your LGs, and many others. And you could China now with emerging global conglomerates that is taking their claim in the global commercial space. And we need African homegrown multinationals that are going to play on the global stage and be leaders in certain industries. And that's how we can reframe and reposition the African brand equity and brand proposition globally.
And it's possible for the private sector to play this role too. Of course, it's great that the South African government is focusing on creating black industrialists, but big companies like Massmart can also help by opening up their supply chain to help create local businesses in South Africa.
Absolutely. At Massmart, we've set up a supplier development program which allows us to fund and provide grants and assist entrepreneurs that we integrate into our supply chain. We've created over 25 businesses through that scheme, and those businesses themselves have created thousands of jobs. And we're looking at partnering with those entrepreneurs to not just limit them to suppliers in South Africa, but those that are able to supply us globally. We want to walk the journey with them and enable them to access the global Walmart supply chain so that they can scale up their businesses, they can globalize their businesses, and they can employ more people and plug into the world, indeed. I think there's massive opportunity there for businesses such as Massmart, which is why we are doing that. And I think other businesses as well, which are in a similar space as us, should be able to do that. But also I think African entrepreneurs and African leaders have got to be proactive in trying, because the world is not waiting for South Africa. The world is competitive. South Africa is not special. It is not unique anymore. The Mandela honeymoon is over. So we need, as a country, to be able to market South African products, market South African companies, reach out to global multinationals, look at opening up access to the global supply chains of global multinationals, whether it's in France, it's in Germany, the FTSE 100 in the UK, Fortune 100 in the United States, whether it's in Japan or China or anywhere else in the world.
So you have South African suppliers who are now selling into the Walmart global supply chain. Do you have any examples to share?
Yeah, we've got some very good examples of products that we've managed. We've got an entrepreneur that manufactures charcoal, for example, which is now being exported to Walmart Chile. And it was initially, the aim was to just supply us in South Africa, but now they're able to supply us globally as well. And we also have entrepreneurs that have assisted us to substitute imports. We used to import instant noodles, for example. We now have an entrepreneur based in Cape Town employing over 100 people producing instant noodles for our stores. We used to import those. Now they're manufactured by South Africans for South Africa and the world, right in South Africa. We have an entrepreneur in Durban who has enabled us to substitute imports of nails. We used to import nails into our builders' warehouse stores, and now those nails are manufactured in Durban. The jobs are now local.